of it. But my next guest, we're going to talk about something which maybe isn't so pleasant, but then again, it could be pleasant because there are lots of divorce parties happening and all that sort of business now, which never used to be happening. But earlier on, I mentioned the statistics given to me by my guest. 47,209 divorces granted in 2008. Estimates at this point in time saying 3 Australian marriages are going to end up in divorce. The emotional impacts of divorce, undoubtedly devastating. I've got the financial expert and author of Real Money Advice for Divorce, Wilson Luna, on the line, and we're going to talk about divorce and maybe take your calls, get your calls as well, if you'd like to comment about your own personal situations. Luna, thanks for coming on a Saturday night. I appreciate it.
Mate, all good. Thanks very much for having us on, Andrew.
No, it's my pleasure. It's great to talk to you and talk about this subject because, look, when it comes to divorce, and we say who really loses in divorce, but who really wins in a divorce?
Yeah, look, you know what? When you nut it down, and all our research shows that at the end of the day, there really isn't any net winners. And, you know, when you break it up between the males and females, and obviously we're just talking natural stats, like i.e. average stats, but generally speaking, the female, she'll generally get the custody of the kids, or that's what stats say, which means that more cases than not, she'll probably get the house, or she'll get the house asset, so she'll be higher in, I suppose, you know, housing wealth. On the other hand, you know, she will probably generally lose earning power on average, about believe it or not, $21,400 on average across Australia that she'll lose a year, and yet she's basically still got the same expenses, you know, negative one person in the house. So it's not a good situation. And then on top of that, she doesn't have the opportunity. If she does get the kids, she does get custody of the kids, she doesn't have the opportunity to work because she's obviously got to take care of them in a lot of cases. So her superannuation also suffers, which is really pretty much her retirement or what she's got in the future anyway. What
happens to the guys?
The guys, slightly different. If they don't gain household, believe it or not, they end up living on their own generally straight afterwards for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But they still have to pay for the rent, or they still have to pay for the similar housing expenses. But again, you know, they've got slightly less disposable income. Why? Because, you know, they've got to pay child custody, and they've got they've got to hold the household at the same time. Mm-hmm. They do have an unlimited capacity to earn in the majority of cases, and this is generalised. I want to be really clear about that because that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they actually do get custody of the kids, but generally the stats say that they've got less than that. And on average, obviously, their housing wealth drops substantially. Because if they don't get custody, they'll generally, you know, they'll give in the split up of assets, they'll generally go to the woman. So no one wins at the end. The only person that generally wins is the solicitors, unfortunately. Look, I'm not trying to be bad on that side, but that's generally the case.
And they do. And anecdotally, I'll say something about solicitors in just a moment. A friend of mine got divorced years and years ago, and she went in to see the solicitor, and the solicitor said, and what do you want to get out of this? And she said, look, I don't really want to get anything. I just want what I'm entitled to. I just want half of everything. And the solicitor said, listen, go away and come back when you're angry. She wasn't angry enough to hire the solicitor because she needed to go, he's a bastard, I'm going to go for everything.
You know, that's something to be cautious of. Look, I know you're just saying as a story, but that's something to be cautious of because if, you know, like one of our pieces of advice is, you know, if you can find it within yourself to somehow negotiate, there's more in the pie, you know. Yeah. Every single time you go at each other hard, generally there's less in the pie because there's a third party, namely the legal parties, that are taking part of it. So,
yeah. What the kids? What happens to the kids, and how do they can they benefit out of a divorce? And I'm talking about psychologically, or in any way. I guess because it all comes into play, doesn't it? Because you've got the psychological aspect of it, mum and dad splitting up, what's going to happen to them, their futures seem unclear. On top of that, you know, the financial, because finances change, they may not be able to do what they used to do. Their social life changes because they're not socialising with the same people they used to. Once mum and dad start dating again further down the track, it's dealing with that. And I reckon it'll be really tough on kids.
Oh, yeah. Look, personally, I come from a broken home. So for me, when we were actually writing this book, one of the areas, and it's interesting because it actually got a bit emotional even from my front doing the research that we did, because I was sort of, you know, reliving part of what I was seeing. And then that's not a bad thing. That sometimes it's good to sort of, go through it in that stage. But one thing we found was we were really delicate on this area because and I suppose the theme that goes right through the whole book is this. Number one, I don't care how angry you are with that partner, no matter what they've done, the one thing that you've got, and I suppose first priority should be those kids should be affected as least as possible, and you should ensure, no matter what, again, what's happened, we've sort of said, here are the guidelines to say, no matter I suppose for whatever reason of why you're where you are, at least when you speak about the kids, work out the best outcome for them, and please don't use them as a pawn to go against the other party. Because not only will you be doing, I suppose, down the track, you're going to be looking yourself in the mirror and sort of probably regretting that fact, but, you don't want to be in that overall front where you're going, I'm doing this because, I could use this as a winning ground, or I'm going to use the kids again. Keep them protected. That's the first step. The first step is saying, if we had a future plan for them, work out between yourselves that say, look, let's see, if we want to take them to that school or we want them to have this kind of future, make your first point of call. And we generally find that when this becomes the fact, a lot of the other arguments sort of mellow down because the number one priority, which is the children, which they had nothing to do with it at the end of the day, when they get sorted, the parents start coming to some kind of realization saying, okay, hang on, let's work on this first, and by the time they get through that, they get a lot more logical in their personal financial settlements. Yeah. So, look, that's easier said than done, by the way. So,
look, and it never ceases to amaze me that you go back to the early days when you meet somebody, the chemistry's there, you fall in love, you think you're going to love that person for the rest of your life, and it's amazing that there are people who, you think back to the first time you met your wife or your partner and how you felt, and rose-coloured glasses, and these same two people 10, 15, 20 years down the track hate each other with a passion, can't stand the sight of each other and want to just get them for everything they can.
Yeah.
That really gets me. Actually, I've got a call just rang in and left a message. Rick says, don't worry about getting married, just find someone you hate and give them your house.
I guess that's another one. Look, it's interesting because, look, we did, the research was fairly extensive in writing this book, and one of the things that we found was, the one regret that a lot of people had at the end, 3-5 years after the divorce, funnily enough, was that they didn't actually sit down. We've got a whole mantra in the whole book that says, when emotions are really high, intelligence is at your lowest. And what we say is when you're feeling that emotional against someone, like you want to kill them or you want to, do something that you probably shouldn't, that's the time when you say, let's stop. Let's really look carefully. It's
probably a good time to stop, actually.
Oh, not only that, especially from a financial fund, 3 to 5 years down the track,
killing's not good. Lots of implications.
It's a tough time.
Yep.
And they end up doing, one of the things that generally happens is when they get so emotional, some parties say, look, I'll give them everything because I'm tired of it. And they end up regretting. When we asked them 3 to 5 years down the track, they said, the one thing I regretted was that I didn't end up sticking up for the assets that were truly mine.
Yeah.
And that I worked all my life in gaining. That's the saddest part that can happen because, look, the reality is that health and relationships are the most important things, I believe, in our lives. But money, to a certain extent, is the fuel, and if together you work to creating some kind of nest egg, you should really work on trying to get the fair share in either side because both parties deserve it to a certain extent. So,
there's nothing unreasonable about that as well. There's nothing unreasonable about it. If it was, if it was wrong and, then fair enough. But no, there's nothing unreasonable about saying, listen, let's go 50-50. And like you say, call a truce. Call a truce and let's, just sort it out properly and without the emotion and maturely, like adults, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to advice, who do you go to for advice?
Look, we looked at this and we found out that the result, we said, okay, what are the three best tips that, obviously they're not going to totally negate a bad situation, but we said for you to get your fair chunk or your fair share of the marital assets, and we said, look, 3 main things. Number one, if possible, like we discussed earlier on, try and leave the emotion out of it and see to what extent you can negotiate with your partner, where you can sit down and say, look, let's leave the situation out of it. Let's just talk about how we're going to divide this up. The more you do that, the more there is in the pie for you to get at the end of the day, and the less that, third parties like solicitors, etc. Okay? If you can't do that, get a mitigator. Get a middle person that is independent to talk you through. Number two, get advice. And what I mean by that is a lot of people run to it and say, look, I just want the house or I just want the car. And if there's a debt on the car or if you haven't got enough income to be able to support it, it's no use inheriting something that you're not going to be able to pay for anyway. So get the proper financial advice so when you do divvy up the assets, you're sure what you're actually getting and that you can support it and that it works for you.
Wilson, just listening to what you're saying now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like when people are thinking about divorce, rather than rushing to a solicitor, go see a financial advisor first.
Yeah, look, that's one option. That's one option. Another option, obviously, it depends, I suppose, the relationship, how it works, but make sure that if you do go and see an advisor, the main thing is that you get someone that understands the divorce process. That's the only caveat that I'd put to that, and I totally agree with you. Go and see one, but make sure he understands, because there's a lot of little intricacies with divorce that you'd want them to understand on the separation of assets. And once you get the right advice, at least you say, you know what, I'm on the right track. I know what I should be going for. And what I can give up in order to grab that. So absolutely with that.
Now, we're just going to take you left of centre a little bit, and something that's been topical for a while in the media, becoming more so in recent times, is the subject of gay marriage. And I'm just wondering, and forgive me for being cynical, okay? Forgive me for being cynical, but I'm just wondering if the gay marriage issue isn't something that's being pushed, an agenda being pushed by solicitors, thinking, well,
I know where you're coming from.
We're running out of male and female couples. They're stopping getting married, so let's push the gay agenda, and then we'll be able to get them when they split up.
Yeah, let's increase our market share.
Yeah.
I hear it. Yeah, $1 million question. Look, I wouldn't say, look, I'll tell you a misconception that I did find. We spent a lot of time as well talking to solicitors. And funnily enough, I think in a majority of cases they've got a worse rap than what they actually deserve in this area, because to a large part, and I'm not going to generalize either way, but to a large part, their intent is right, their advice is pretty good, and they've got the right mentality. I suppose they've got the right intent in place. Obviously, you're always going to get out of 100 great ones, you're always going to get 2 or 3 that will sort of, rock the boat and do the wrong thing. But I think
you're being so kind. You're being so kind.
I was probably talking to the right ones, though, Andrew. That's the problem, you see.
How much did he charge you for the hour?
Yeah. Actually, I'm still waiting for the bill, funnily enough. Yeah. So look, that whole area is, I think it's it's an interesting area at the moment that's been, and I wonder how that will, I suppose, flow on to the laws, etc. I mean, is it the same laws that will apply? And I suppose if it doesn't fall under the marriage, I suppose they would.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting revelation.
I mean, it's just like I said, thinking outside the square a little bit. But and I know it sounds cynical, but less males and females getting married, so maybe they're thinking, okay, where's another market we can tap into? Okay, let's go for gay marriages.
You know what you should do? You should get the legal association on the phone, and that will answer that question quick, smart.
Yeah, I couldn't afford to.
Yeah, true. You probably not.
Now, Wilson, any other advice? Any other?
Yeah, look, probably last on a serious note, it's probably when you do get your settlement. In a lot of cases, it's that kind of capital that needs to last you a long time.
Yeah.
Get advice there for sure.
All right.
Don't grab it, waste it in a hurry. And I suppose the last point is, I'd like to say congratulations to you and your wife for your 18th anniversary. I think you said next Saturday, didn't you?
No, Monday.
Monday, okay. Congratulations. That's a feat in itself. I've known my wife for 22 years, so, you must be doing something right. So.
What's the secret? What's 22 years?
You know what? The one thing I've realized is that I don't know. And every single year, I suppose it's just, work hard at it. I don't know, and that's one area I definitely don't know much about. And I'm on my L's on that area, so it's just a matter of, I suppose, day by day, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it's coming up to 18 years. I think we're just starting to get a bit used to each other.
She's beginning to understand you a lot more.
We'll just start to like each other a bit.
That'll happen, won't it?
Yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah, it's an experiment, isn't it?
Yeah. No, look, you know what? It's all good, and I think it's more you begin to appreciate yourself for the unique qualities that we have, I suppose.
Yeah. Hey, you're an author. You've written a few books. What are the names of your books?
Real Money Advice for Families, which basically shows families how to go from red to black in 4 easy steps. The 30-day challenge, which, you know, it's sort of like a bit of a revolution in terms of it just went nuts when it came out because it showed families how to quick, smart, go from, you know, zero to hopefully saving $30,000 just by following a 30-step process. Yeah. That was really, you know, that went on all the current affairs and all the rest of it. And it's currently there's 3,500 families undertaking it, which is, you know, we're wrapped with because the whole cause behind Your Family Your Money is helping families sort of, you know, find the best situation in the current climate, and that's what it's all about. So,
awesome.
And this last one's Real Money Advice for Divorce, which hopefully at least gives some kind of assistance. And, you know, the feedback so far, again, is good because it's like at least will point you in the right direction and what hopefully you should be doing.
Yeah. You up for a challenge?
Tell me.
All right. Send me your books.
Yep.
All right. I'm not sure about the one about divorce yet. All right. Let's give it time. Okay. But I read your books.
Yep.
And I implement what you say.
Yep.
And we catch up on a regular basis.
Yep.
And we talk about what's happening.
I'm up for that challenge.
And how it's going. Does that sound fair?
That sounds like a sensational idea.
I reckon it sounds fair. All right, because it sounds like what you're saying is it sounds common sense, fair and reasonable, and I want to take you up.
Thank you for that, Andrew.
No, it's my pleasure, Wilson.
Consider it in the post, and really, really thanks for having us on your show.
No, it's a pleasure, mate. It's great to have you on, and just between you and me, I reckon we beat Hey, it's Saturday, and the Eagles hands down.
Good man. I'm sure we have, mate.
Okay.
You know what? They're probably talking about us at the moment going, damn those guys.
That's exactly right.
All right, champion.
Thanks, Will.
Cheers, mate.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All the best to you. Okay, bye-bye. It's 23 minutes after 8. 8223 is the interactive number. That was Wilson Luna. He's a financial money expert, private wealth advisor, international keynote speaker, and he's the published author of a few finance books. So you might want to look him up on the internet, and I'll be chatting with him again, actually, because he sounds like a really interesting guy, a nice guy as well. All right, I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Keep them coming in. 8223